Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over our very poor performance against Bath, all the other European action, look forward to our game against Ulster, and all the other fixtures in the Pro 12. So boys, 1916.
Nearly 2016 now. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's a bit harsh there, Jason, our very poor performance. What was last week then, if that was very poor?
2 losses in a row, John.
Yeah.
3 technically.
Well, I wouldn't be jumping up and down and singing about it, but it was, at least they showed a bit of heart.
Pack the can't scrummage, line out, decision makers poor, coaching, leaving out our most...
You're hitting me with the broadsides here, Jason.
I know, I'm sorry, John, but to say it.
It's a left, it's another left, it's a right. It's
I can't disagree with all of that, but I just felt two things. First, it was a bit of a cripple fight because Bath are in, a bit of turmoil themselves. Sam Burgess leaving, being without Jonathan Joseph, they're not in good form. Whereas Wasps are, well, as we saw against Toulon, that put our game in a bit of perspective. Wasps are playing fabulous rugby and defending incredibly well. Obviously we're in slightly worse form than Bath, seeing as they beat us, admittedly over in their patch, but I wouldn't be getting excited. The scrum in particular, I mean, whatever about the line-out, but the scrum was really poor, very, very poor. And you'd expect a bit more from the guys that were there. Now, admittedly, when Triggs went off, you had a bit of inexperience in the second row, which you can kind of blame the bad scrummaging on. But before he went off, we lost scrum pretty much every scrum. I think there were 2 or 3 scrums where we held our own, and one where we actually made some headway. But apart from that, we were getting larruped out of it.
Yeah. Scrum cost us the match. Simple
pretty much, yeah.
I mean, like
all of their points came from it almost.
Try and a penalty. It was 10 points of their 19 in 2 incidences.
Yeah,
on the scrum.
Didn't the winning try come from our winning?
I'm sure there was other ones.
Well, that came from. That last point penalty that they scored came from poor decision making from the leadership group, poor execution, and then the scrum was poor, leading to the penalty. Everything about that was just because if you remember where they had the ball, they started just in front of their own posts.
We defended a lot better, in fairness, and I thought we actually started to get
some of the time
we defended. Well, no, it's true, but it's a relative thing. I mean, and you said earlier that the Wasps' performance against Toulon put ours into context. It didn't really, because it doesn't matter if Wasps beat us by 1,000,000 points or they didn't. In that match, we looked terrible. We didn't look like a team that had any pride or any kind of idea or any gumption about itself. Whether Wasps lost to Toulon or won against Toulon or beat Toulon or got hammered by Toulon, we still looked like a gumptionless side against them.
We would have looked an awful lot worse if they'd have lost 40-0 to Toulon, though.
The context it isn't really that relevant. But I thought we did look somewhat better, because I watched the game again this morning. I was really dreading it because at the time after the match I was just so downhearted. So I watched the game again this morning in preparation for this, and it didn't look as bad the second time. But what it did do, it's like, sometimes when we're doing Blues Talk and I leave the power on the camera and you get this buzz behind the voices and you're talking and all you hear is this and it's really annoying. Sorry, folks. There was a buzz of things not being right behind the Leinster performance on Sunday.
True. But we did kind of fight our way back into it, and while I thought they were the better team for the first hour, and admittedly now I haven't had the benefit of seeing it back on the telly, but for the last kind of 20 minutes I thought we kind of gradually got on top, and we were looking much more like we had some hope of winning the game until obviously right at the death.
I think what we were trying to do is something that Leinster teams often have done in the past is, not played all that well for a certain amount of the game, then come out and absolutely blitz the opposition for 20 minutes and put them away, and then been able to take their foot off again. The difference is that we're not playing well enough when we're not playing well to restrict the opposition, and we're not playing well enough when we are playing well to demolish them. I mean, we didn't. I mean, the period of play, or the period of time up to Josh van der Vlier's try, there was an awful lot of good play there. and it looked more like a Leinster team. It looked like guys were doing the right things, but then they fell off it again.
But then, Dave, like we're trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You know, when you think of, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years, the guys that used to be there that are no longer there, and we're expecting the same results. And you're saying, you know, sure, we blitzed them for 15 or 20 minutes. That's when you had the likes of, you know, Nathan Hines playing for you. Sean O'Brien was fit. Heaslip was 3 or 4 years younger, and same at Nassau. Driscoll was there. Darcy was there. Et al. Now these guys, okay, there's, you know, half of them are gone. That's life. Move on. But the other ones have all got a bit older. Well, you know, Jamie Heaslip has played 80 times for Ireland, over 200 times for Leinster. He's
huge minutes.
Huge minutes. He's 30. He'll be 32 years of age in December. You know, like, he ain't getting any younger, and his body has to have.
I just want to clarify. I don't think that they should be able to do it the way that. But I think that what I mean is that they think that they can do it that way, that the way that they used to be able to do it, and obviously they can't because, you know, as you say, some of the good players have gone. Some of the players have gotten older, and the mileage is taken, and some of them are injured, and you know, and the opposition is good as well. They've watched Leinster. They know what Leinster do. I'm not saying that I expect them to do it. What I think is that on some level they expect to be able to still do it. It's like the old guy playing football. You know, he expects to be able to push it back to fullback, push the ball past the fullback, and then use his pace to get past him. And the pace isn't there anymore.
Well, let's see. Is there anything else is there any part of this that we can blame on Matt O'Connor? Actually, yes. Lack of development of when we're missing all these guys, or when these guys are aging a bit. Wouldn't it be great to have a freshly blooded set of guys that have had good game time for the last 2 years, ready to come through and take over? Well, guess what? We don't. And that is the big weakness.
Well, one of the problems is that some of the guys that we did bring through aren't playing that well themselves either, in terms of, like, Jordy Murphy came through over the last 2 years. Jack Conan watched the A match.
Just like over the last 2 years, not everything is Matt O'Connor's
fault. What I'm saying is,
but there is a little bit.
There are problems even with the guys coming up behind. I mean, Jordy Murphy's lost form. Jack Conan is injured. Ed Byrne is not fully fit.
He's injured too.
Because he's injured. He picked up that injury. So there are problems that are not the coaching team's fault. Whoever that coaching team is. I mean, whether it's Leo, whether it's Matt, whether it's Joe Schmidt, it's not necessarily their fault because, you know, you can't count for injuries. I mean, if we were in a situation where Sean O'Brien is injured, we went away to Castres. Was it 2 years ago? It was Sean O'Brien injured, and Jordy Murphy put in a coming of age performance. But he has come of age, and now he looks a bit knackered like the rest of them.
What you put that down to is another matter. I mean,
you know, a few people
so many things.
A few people got in touch with us on Twitter, asking the same kind of question: Is there a World Cup hangover? Dave?
Well, there was one good question actually, kind of sums it all up. And it was Colin Meehan asked it, and he says, rank the following in blame order: aging players, World Cup hangover, disjointed team brackets because of World Cup, and coaching.
Well, I really do hate that phrase, World Cup hangover, and probably because it's been bandied about so much.
But there has to be some validity in it.
Of course there is. I mean, guys have obviously been training since August, not in the Leinster system, but in the Irish system with different goals, different, you know, ways of playing, different structures. And they've also been physically designed to peak for October. You know, that's it. That's when, you know, the end of September into October, that's when they wanted to peak. So they're kind of, while they're still obviously very fit, there's two things. One is, as I mentioned, is the fact that they're not in our system, whereas in a normal season they'd be pre-season, they'd be, even if they weren't allowed to play game minutes, they'd be well trained in our systems, our calls, all of that stuff, whereas now they're not. And then the obvious thing of, you know, perhaps mental burnout more than physical burnout.
I don't think there's a physical element to it. Apart from what you're saying about the guys peaking, right? Because, you know, the training is. People have said, "Oh, they look exhausted." And they do look exhausted, but I don't think that exhaustion is physical. I think it's mental, because the actual amount of high intensity matches they've played isn't huge.
Plus, guys like Redden and, you know, guys who had bit parts in the World Cup, they're hardly overworked in terms of game time.
I think that the exhaustion, which I think is there, but it's more of a mental than a physical thing. What you say about is the World Cup hangover? No, but I do think that there is a certain amount of disjointedness because of the World Cup. Like you say, guys been out of system, guys been out of camp, guys been using different systems. I think that is an element.
Well, it's just that there's so many of them, you know.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, you could say the reason why Leinster lost on Sunday was because of A, B, C, D, and each one would probably have a certain amount of validity to it, because these things don't, unless something extraordinary happens, it's never as a result of one thing. It's always a kind of accumulation of small effects. You've got an inexperienced coaching team, you've got guys out of form, you've got guys who are injured, you've got a good opposition team. You got
they were rested. They hadn't played the previous weekend. They had a 6-day turnaround.
They probably had maybe there were some selection mistakes that were made.
Well, I mean that you mentioned, the lad asked us about the selection and the coaches. The coaches are learning on the job here. I mean, you've got a very, very inexperienced set of guys running Leinster
with no outside input really, apart from possibly our defence coach Kurt McQuilkin. He's about the only person, and even he is dyed in the wool Leinster.
Yeah, I mean he's a former Leinster captain.
But I mean, we are making, those lads are making selection mistakes. I mean, they made us the previous week. Even last week, okay.
Well, in our opinion.
Okay, in our opinion. But they decided this week to pick players in the right position, so they pick centres in the centre and wings on the wing.
Always helps.
And so on. But they still, there's some fellas, like you mentioned Murphy as an example, he's not playing well, and we picked him, or the selectors picked him, when there's other guys who can do a job and are in better form. Likewise, the scrum half Boss hasn't been playing well this season, yet he was picked, and Ringrose didn't even make the 23. So you've the most exciting young fella in the squad, or one of them, not even making it. I know, like when you actually go through it, it's kind of difficult to find a slot that he would fit into.
Bench.
and the one thing that I have been harping on about at the centre partnership actually looked quite solid this week.
Ben Teo, I thought, played very well.
Yeah, in the first minute, little bit of the game I saw back on the television. The first minute, he crippled.
He was playing a very dangerous game, because he was making defensive reads. He was making defensive reads that were, either 100% succeed or 100% fail. I mean, if he'd missed even by a bit, we were screwed. Now, luckily enough, we didn't, or maybe not luck, maybe it's judgment. But to a certain extent, he was trying to generate a bit of. Matt Williams used to call them energizers. When somebody does something, when somebody hits somebody, when a scrum is successful, when a good maul is successful, and it sends a jolt of energy throughout the team, and they're energizers. And I think he was trying to generate some kind of energizers for the team. Not sure he was entirely successful, but it wasn't for want of trying.
But at least, that in previous weeks, that has been a bit of a weakness, like who we played in the centre. There's been debates about Noel Reid and his defence. There's been debates about, who should Fergus McFadden have played in the centre. All of those things. And at least now we got that bit right. We didn't. For example, Madigan didn't get on the field at all.
Rumours that there was reports in the Irish Independent today that he was offered a lot of money by Bristol.
We'll see. It could be true. Bristol are splashing money around on players a lot worse than Ian Madigan. Gareth Hansen.
That's true.
They've signed an awful lot of players.
Is he still playing for them?
Yeah. Well, he's still I think
still employed by them anyway.
Still employed by them. Gareth Maul is there. Dwayne Peel is there. David Lemmy is there. Jack Lamb, Darren Hudson, and Jack O'Connell are there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys. Matt Morgan is there. They spent an awful lot of money. I mean, we've all made the joke about the PRL waiting for Bristol to get promoted, and then they're going to
pull the ladder up,
get rid of the relegation thing. But to a certain extent, it's true. And Bristol spending a fortune on it. But anyway, he wouldn't have been the only unused substitute. Only Dave Carney got a knock. So I don't think Zane Kirshen would have come on either, if it hadn't been required.
Yeah. But I'm happy. I'm happy to see that at least they put a bit of oomph into it this week.
Yeah.
It still wasn't good enough, but at least it was going in the right direction. As regards the coaching team learning on the job, there weren't many options. It's better than another year of Matt O'Connor, as we said last week, and if we're not getting Eddie Jones, who we'll probably come on to later, or we're not getting whoever else,
You see,
you might as well,
We know at the end of the season if it's been better than another year, Matt O'Connor.
well, unless it's significantly bad, then it will have been, because at least we'll have developed our coaches as well as our players, hopefully. Leo Cullen's a smart bloke, so
Well, there was.
I can see him being a quick learner. I'm hoping so anyway.
The other side of it is, it's the second week of Europe and we're out.
Yeah,
We're out.
first time since
years.
first time since the
Is that not catastrophic?
Pro 12, since the Celtic League has been in existence, that we've lost our first 2 games,
Is it not kind of
I believe.
pretty catastrophic for a club like Leinster who judges itself on its position in Europe?
Yes,
You
of
know?
course it is.
We've got to try and sell. We're not to sell. We've got to try and fill a 50,000 seater stadium now in 3 weeks' time.
Mm-hmm.
Best of luck with that, Nick Dawson.
We're going to be trying to attract talent next year, perhaps.
Yeah.
Are they going to?
Yeah, we addressed those last week.
I know. That was the potential. Now it's here. Now, and it's hard to know what to do in terms of we can't lose another coaching team. But what we have to do is we have to do what we didn't do last year and not get some more get the guys some experienced outside help to add another voice so that they'll learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's what last year I wasn't in favour of getting rid of Matt O'Connor. I was in favour of hiring more guys. And it's the same this year. I think we need to hire more guys. I think we need.
So you'd like a Bobby Robson to come in for a Stan?
No, not even that. Not even that. No, I don't want anyone who come in who could be potentially seen as an appointment that would undermine Leo Cullen as head coach of Leinster Rugby. I don't want a director of rugby or anything like that. Leo Cullen is the boss. Right?
The thoughts were that it could have been a backs coach to come in.
However, I do think we need a forwards coach. I simply do. I said it last year. I don't think our pack has been performing well for 18 months, 24 months. We need a forwards coach. And let Leo take care of the big picture stuff. Because he's the man in charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in his first season as a head coach, it perhaps isn't a great thing to be combining that role with forwards coach.
Yeah, so what we have to do is... what we need is not to get rid of people or not to change people. What we need to do is hire people. Is invest in more people to make the native coaching team we have even stronger, to help them do their jobs better. Mm-hmm. Because at this stage, all we have left is the Pro 12. And somebody asked the question, Stephen Devine asked the question, for the remainder of the season, should we just kind of give up on the senior guys and pick the younger guys?
It's hard, there's no point in taking a blanket approach.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
There's no point in taking a blanket approach and just saying, okay, let's put all the kids into Europe.
I don't think we'd be let anyway.
You've got to blend your teams like Joe Schmidt used
to. But is there not there's now a situation where the team is not quite mathematically out of, but for all intents and purposes out of Europe, right? Mm-hmm. Unless there's a load of bizarre set of results.
Like us bonus pointing Toulon home
Toulon.
And away.
Yeah. So let's say, for all intents and purposes, that we are out. So if you take that on board, then do you go down the road of saying we're going to bring in and play all the 18? No, you're not going to do that either. But what we should maybe do is maybe put a rocket under the backside of some guys that might have been coasting. Mm-hmm. Is there a number of fellas in the Leinster squad who pretty much think that they're undroppable? That they're Irish internationals, that all they have to do is just walk back in.
I'm sure there are, but where do you start? And how many of them do you do?
The thing we also have to remember, for whatever about the World Cup this year, next year international season is even harder. We've got the Six Nations, that's 5 matches.
We've got an extra.
We've got 4 autumn internationals, and we've got how many matches in South Africa? Is it 4? 3 tests and another game?
Possibly, yeah.
So that's.
And then you but
it's not because it doesn't cut into the season as much as the
World Cup. No, but what I'm saying
did.
is that'll have a knock-back effect on us in that our ability to mix and match players might be because.
But they come back from South Africa and they'll probably have 3 months off, and then there's an extra game. They play the All Blacks twice because they play in Chicago.
In America. Yeah, what I'm saying is that the national coaching staff might want certain guys played a certain amount coming into the season, and might restrict our ability to give guys breaks.
Especially coming up with 2 pops of the All Blacks.
Yeah, they might want they don't want them off the pace in Europe kind of thing, or off that kind of elevated level.
But they want them playing well too.
They want them playing well as well. I mean, it's a hard one to judge. It's a hard game. It's a hard juggle.
We're not coming up with great answers here, lads. You know, and I
see,
think the problem is there aren't great answers.
There's no easy fix. There's no one thing that Leinster or anyone can do that'll fix everything.
Well, another coach might be your best idea, Dave.
Another coach, not another head coach, another coach in the staff.
In the mix.
I just want to emphasise that. I'm not saying get rid of anyone.
An extra coach.
Yes, an extra coach.
Whether it's a forwards coach or backs coach,
but like Leinster
skills coach.
Leinster made a decision to go with Cullen, Dempsey,
absolutely,
and
back them,
and Fogarty. And what they have to do now is stick with them.
Absolutely.
You can't, I mean, like, do you remember 10 years ago we lurched from, Matt Williams went to Scotland, then we got in Gariella, then we got Kidney in, and eventually we've stumbled upon Cheika. But you know what I mean? Like, no one had ever heard of Cheika before, and all of a sudden we won the league, and then.
Well, now in fairness, it was his third season we won the league. You know.
I think it's important that third. 2005, 2006, 2006, 2007, 2008 when we won the league.
And fourth we won the Heineken Cup.
The thing is,
it was building.
I agree with you. We have to stick with the guys. We do. But that doesn't mean that they have to be left swinging in the wind in terms of experience and where they're left. If they need help, they should get help. If they need support, they should get it. I mean, if you remember when Cheika had David Knox and Mike Brewer, and that wasn't working. So he was able to, he got rid of, and he got in Alan Gaffney and John Gibbs. So if the guys need support, give them that support. And don't not give it to them because of budgets or whatever. You know?
Well, we made that point last week. Have a look around the Lansdowne Road on the 19th of December and see how much extra money you might have had at your disposal.
If the team was devoid of internationals, like if they'd all left or if they were all injured, there were 7 starting internationals in the pack. And most of the back line were Irish internationals as well, with an NRL guy too. And yet our pack were annihilated for large chunks of that game.
Certainly in the set pieces they were,
Like there's no answer to that. I mean, that's literally what it is. We got a question in from Top Tackle. Are scrum difficulties as much a lack of a decent tight head lock option as much as they are a front row malfunction?
Yeah, well, you could certainly accuse that when you had the Triggs go off and you had a lack of experience. You could certainly say that.
We didn't have a replacement. Like, again, another error that I would believe that the coaching staff made was not having a second row
on the bench. Yeah, well, it's a gamble.
Maybe we don't have.
It's a big gamble
there, but like Denton's there,
Yeah, but look, if he'd have been on the bench, everybody would have been given out. Why was he on the bench? So we took a gamble and went with two.
To be honest with you, if the Leinster coaching staff are worried about what people are giving alpha about,
well, that's true. The plan was obviously to have the 2 second rows play 80 minutes, and we were denied that by Hayden Triggs, who getting injured. Who I don't know, is he a tight head lock or is he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But
McCarthy, he's not very orthodox. He's not the brick shithouse style of tight head lock, but he's played most of his rugby in that
side of the scrum, has he? Yeah. McCarthy is definitely a tight head lock. That's his big thing, and in fact, the fact that he's not so tall makes him probably lose a little bit in the line-out, but he's much better in the scrum. In fact, he's not a great line-out option. He's brilliant and he's great at hitting rucks and all that, but the point is he's a bit heavy to be lifting, and he also has a bit of lack of height. He's not rubbish in the line-out by any means, but you really gain from him in the scrum and in mauls and rucks and stuff like that. Triggs, I don't know, he's just a bit of an unknown quantity still. I mean, he's played a few games for us, but
but the scrum disintegrated when he went off.
It did.
It was fairly shambolic when he was there as well, which leads me to think I think it was a systems failure. I'm not sure why, but I mean it's not like the players we had on the pitch were rubbish.
I think, and Mike Whelan said this to me earlier, I can credit him with it. I'm not 100% convinced they were scrummaging legally. Bath. They were coming up in a loose head.
Coming up in a loose head. I'd want to know. We were probably scrummaging illegally, which is why we got.
Yeah, but we weren't able to scrummage as illegally and get away with it as they were. So your man is Gazer or whatever his name is renowned for
Garces.
Is renounced for not being a great judge of the scrum. I actually thought, again, at the ground, I thought he had a fairly okay game in that I didn't see any howlers that he made.
There's one rule in scrummaging, right?
The fact that you don't...
If you get away with it, it's legal.
Well, that's of course, but...
And if he's not reffing one side, he's not going to ref the other side either. So, no.
Then the pack leaders, if they are doing something illegal, it's up to. Do you remember in the final against Northampton?
Yeah, work it out.
Leo Cullen went up and had a go. Whether he made his point whether it got through or not, it doesn't matter. What they went up did is they went and they examined what was going wrong and they corrected it.
It was Greg Feek though.
But the players had to take responsibility as well as the coach.
Oh, yeah.
They had to implement whatever Feek said.
Exactly.
And there's experienced enough guys. They said there was 7 internationals and 3 more on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't remedy it, well then you'd have to question what the hell were they doing.
I mean, people were seriously suggesting that at the beginning of the season, before John Fogarty was appointed, that Mike Ross take the job as player scrum coach, as it were. And it wouldn't have been the most unearthly thing you'd ever heard.
The guy is the doctor.
So I mean,
scrum.
if he couldn't work it out, I don't know. But the scrum was bonus maximus. We were just getting nowhere with it. And I mean, you look at the guys they didn't even have any particular talent in the scrum, but they made shit of ours. And as we said at the beginning, that's where they won the match. They won the match in single digits, 1-8.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just scrum together. We just looked disjointed.
You've always got, that's the thing. If you've got 8 guys who know what they're doing, if they're doing the same thing, if you've got 8 guys, no matter how good or bad they are, you've always got a chance.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, look, we can draw a line under that. As you said, David, both of you said, we're kind of pretty much out of Europe now. It is. It's underlined. Wasn't a good day for Ulster either. They were beaten 9-27 up by Sarries up in Belfast.
Yeah.
Again, you'd have to say, whatever one's dislike for Saracens as an organisation, they're a very fine rugby team.
Yeah, they're in great form.
And they're playing last year, they were always a good team, right? But they were kind of death by rugby. In the way that, Brendan Rodgers is death by football. They were death by rugby. But they're playing some really nice rugby this year. They really are. They've expanded their game. They've expanded their horizon.
Very much so.
And
they were clinical when they...
turn the screw.
Ulster put it up to them, but once they saw a little clink,
they gave the sucker an even break.
They did, but Sarries looked good. They did look good.
All the English teams looking good, Not
Wasps absolutely mangled Toulon.
32-6.
Yeah, it wasn't even a beating; it was a mangling.
Yeah, they horsed them out of it. Yeah. I was very impressed with Wasps, and it made me feel just about 0.786% better about losing the previous week.
But it's given us
not much,
just
but a little bit.
Little bit of chink.
We're all but out of Europe. But there is that tiny little chink. I mean,
could have also made it harder for us though, because Toulon are not going to be taking any prisoners.
Well, the other side of it is, Toulon, if they come, it's hard to know with Toulon. The thing is, you'd say if it was a French team and they'd lost, well, they'd lose interest. But they're not really a French team; they're just a team that plays in France.
But it's unfortunate the way even the fixtures have fallen that
we're away first.
If we had to play them in the Aviva and beaten them and they'd lost 2 on the bounce,
there'd be a chance even away.
The attritional top 14 season might have got to their heads, and
the other thing is, unlike us, they have only played 1 game.
Yeah.
So they're not as far behind the spot as we are.
Again, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's a disadvantage that they're going to have to fit the game in somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's an advantage that they've got a home game against Bath, who are looking like the second worst team in the group at the moment.
But the likelihood is that all their outstanding fixtures aren't going to be played before Christmas, so it's not going to really affect us until.
If you look at the group, though, Wasps are the team that qualified in the lowest position. We're the next lowest. Bath are the next, and Toulon are obviously the highest ranked team. So things are kind of turned on their head a bit with Wasps up the very top. And
isn't it interesting that all 6 Pro 12 teams lost this weekend?
Yeah.
Obviously, Munster's match was postponed against Stade Francais.
Did you watch Ospreys Clermont Auvergne?
No.
It was fantastic.
It was a good game.
It was wonderful stuff, and Ospreys deserve huge credit from it.
2 tries in 2 minutes twice.
Yeah. In the last and a try with the very last, with the clock well in the red.
To get
They just
two
kept
bonus
going
points.
and going and backing themselves to get 2 bonus points, which is getting a losing bonus point in Stade Marcel Michelin is quite an achievement. To get 2 of them.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome achievement by the Ospreys, and they were the only Pro 12 to win last week in the Champions Cup as well.
It was a great
Munster won as well against Treviso, so admittedly that was against another Pro 12 team.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting though? Like what I was going to say, like we kind of mentioned the World Cup hangover. I know it's an easy one to trot out, but sort of the reason of the Pro 12 teams,
A lot of them,
or a lot of them, is to provide better players for the national team, and so they're the ones that are more likely to be affected. You know, the Glasgow's having 20 odd players, us having nearly 20 players away at the World Cup, whereas I think Wasps had 2 players at the World Cup, whereas they're there as a rugby club, and it's to benefit whether the supporters or the owners, not the National Rugby Union.
It's swings and roundabouts of the regional system. I mean, every system has its advantages and disadvantages. At the moment, we're seeing the disadvantages of ours.
But the World Cup, France saw the disadvantages
of
theirs.
But it fits into the narrative of the Bruce Craigs of this world saying, "Oh, now that you have to qualify for your Pro 12, that you can't rest your players," which is a bit bogus, really. But it suits them.
At some stage, we'll get used to it, and then we start beating the out of them.
But I think every 4 years it's going.
And then they'd have to change it.
But every 4 years, because as I said, the nature of the Pro 12 teams, it is a bit tricky.
You know what the worst part of it is the deal, the financial deal that was done in creating the new competition is currently kind of favouring us because we've been guaranteed a certain amount of money out of it. So the PRL and the top 14 are actually losing a little bit on it compared to where they would. But once they hit a certain target, the way the money is divided is by 3 leagues. So the French and the English are going to get a third each, and then all the other 4 countries that are in the Pro 12 get a third as well. So we're really going to see a bigger financial disadvantage if the thing ever takes off and gets a lot of sponsorship and gets a lot of.
Well, they've got one more. They've doubled their sponsors.
Yeah.
2.
The Turkish Airlines.
I mean, the assumption that it'll be ceteris paribus, though. I mean, are the RFU going to sit with the current situation now that they don't have to play nice with the clubs?
I think that horse is bolted, Dave.
I don't know if it has or not. I mean, it's like whether, despite the fact that the clubs themselves are big entities. I mean, the biggest thing in English rugby isn't the clubs; it's the national team. The RFU controls that lock, stock, and barrel.
We shall see.
They've even brought in a head coach that might be hard for the clubs to argue with.
Well, Eddie Jones he's towed the party line by refusing to pick players from foreign leagues, which is playing into the hands of the clubs because the clubs don't want a situation where their stars could take
I think that's one that plays into the hands of everyone, except for the players that go abroad.
Well, yeah, it does, but it is kind of the RFU and the PRL going hand in hand because it's not really an advantage. Like Gatland, when all the guys were going to France, didn't bother him so much as it bothered the Ospreys and the Scarlets, and you know what I mean. So you can still get them back.
Scarlets actually sold George
North, yeah.
So like,
they encouraged him still trying to get rid of players. Yeah, I mean, so I don't think.
Well, Welsh clubs would possibly rightly argue that that's because their union was putting the squeeze on them, big style, and they had no financial options, So anyway, we won't go into that whole kind of Welsh worms, but it's a good. I think it's a good thing. It's the first foreign coach England have ever had in the history of the world. I think he'll do a good job for them. Now, opinion is divided. A lot of the English guys I met in Bath over the weekend didn't seem to agree. Thought he was going to be terrible for England, but we shall see.
He's an abrasive punter.
He's very honest. He tells it like it is. He's he doesn't sugarcoat it. So I think he's got the combination of the what Stuart Lancaster brought to the party in terms of giving the players a bit of attitude and humility and all, or maybe a lack of attitude, some would say. But he's also got a bit of nous on top of that, and he's got some good coaching. I mean, he's had some. I know most recently he's been with Japan, which, I mean, England are not going to be playing like Japan, but he also had a good run with Australia in the early, and the Brumbies as well in the early noughties. So the guy has the coaching
Chops.
Chops. That's the very word I was looking for. To bring something out of that team. And let's face it, they've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of people playing rugby. They've got if the right person gets into that.
Watching the start of this game the other night.
Watch out.
You look at the current star of the English team is Mike Brown. Good was so good. If you pardon the repetition. For Saracens against Ulster, he looked like a class above. And the thing they have is they have a huge population, which means that they have a huge amount of players of every size, stripe, type. They could pick two separate 15s to play two totally different styles of rugby. I mean, they have that kind of depth. It's just a matter of getting them right on the pitch.
Yeah,
and that's been the gap.
And they haven't done that for about 10 years.
No.
Like
not since Sir Clive.
Sir Clive and that team that was always seemed to be beaten in the final hurdle, the late 90s and early noughties. Like they nearly had a club team. You could pretty much name that team before the coach could, insofar as he knew his best 15 and they went out and picked it. Whereas under Lancaster and probably for the last 10 years, no one really knows what the best English team is.
They still managed to get a few nice scalps in that time. Stuff like, I mean, they still managed to beat the
New
All
Zealand,
Blacks. I mean, that is the thing. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Sir Clive.
Johnny May and Stuart Lancaster are still dining out on that New Zealand.
A lot of the uppityness of English clubs it came in the aftermath of
Sir Clive.
Sir Clive's rule of iron of the England team, because they kind of said to themselves, once the World Cup was won and Sir Clive had gone, they were kind of thinking, we're never going to let ourselves be dominated by a national coach the way we allowed ourselves to be dominated by Sir Clive.
I'd say Sir Clive will throw down a few. Why am I calling him Sir Clive? Well, anyway, I'd say that man will. You have me at it, Dave. You're terrible.
That's his title.
You're terrible.
I mean, that is his title. There's no reason to be rude.
Okay, sorry, Clive. I wonder, will he throw his oar in? I'd say, well, I know he will because he's always doing it. And throw a few pot shots at Eddie Jones, and I'd say Eddie Jones would be well able for it.
Yeah.
That'll be fun actually to watch that.
Clive never says anything about anything, or never misses an opportunity to not say anything about something.
Well, didn't Eddie Jones coach the Australian team that Sir Clive his team beat to win the World Cup?
In the World Cup final,
yeah.
But he also beat the All Blacks in the semi-final, which was no mean feat at the time. They were in great form. Yeah, 2003.
Another kind of, if you like, Southern Hemisphere job that's on the line is Henrik Meyer is up for re-election as Springboks coach, and it's very touch and go whether he makes it or not. 50-50.
The knives are out.
Well, after
the knives aren't necessarily out, more the sweeping brushes in a way, because it's not like, you've done down. Although South Africans to an element are always
they were beaten by Japan.
There's always an element of that. Even if they win, there's an element of that in South African rugby. But the cooler heads who are going to be making this decision, it's not like they want to get rid of him because he's been terrible. He hasn't been quite good enough. And that's the problem.
They expect to win the final every time.
And the thing is, he's got as the 4-year cycle progressed, his win ratio went down. He started off in the 80s, and this season it's down in the low 60s. So
the trapdoor is open.
I mean, all he has to do is keep walking down.
If last week against Bath was a cripple fight, both ourselves and Ulster were soundly beaten. He said, segueing nicely into our Pro 12 segment. Last week, so at least we're at home is all I'll say on that. And hopefully Ulster's form is going to be even worse than ours. And
do you know they have a mad sequence of their 7 games in the Pro 12? They've won, lost, lost.
Okay.
So they're on for a loss now.
They better.
I'm trying to think
keep it up.
I'm trying to think of if there are any potential advantages to Leinster not doing so well.
They haven't won a home game.
One of them is, if you recall, for Interpros, the terraces are always mad crowded. So hopefully this will drop some people off the edge, and Jason will be able to come in with his coffee without having to
spill his cans.
But I'd say there'd be a good crowd. There's always a good crowd for the Interpros.
Do you know they've only won once in Dublin since 1999?
It was 1999, yeah. I do know that.
That was in 2012.
I did know that.
I did know that indeed, yeah. And I was sickened when they did win. It was a great record to have, They
Although
won.
they beat us fairly handy up in Ravenhill earlier on there.
Yeah.
They did. They did. Well, we haven't always had the best of results in Ravenhill, but we knocked out a few draws in the mid noughties.
We had some good results in Ravenhill, particularly under Joe Schmidt. I thought.
Yeah.
I remember one year we went up there and we just. It was I think they were pretty much ashamed of themselves, but by the end of it, because we absolutely demolished
I remember
them.
Sean O'Brien played number 8, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, he absolutely mulleted them into the ground. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think Sean O'Brien will be playing number 8 this week. I'm not sure who will, and I'm not sure who else will have playing number 8 either.
Who knows? Well, Big Nick, I'm sure. Has he been injured or anything? No.
Well, he kind of limped off against the Saracens, so it's hard to know. Sometimes when he goes off because he's knackered, he limps off just to make it look like he's not knackered. It's going to be interesting, I mean, because like you say, there is an opportunity that where we could blend some of the younger names or some of the younger players in it in the right position, provided they have the right support with them. So, for example, would it be such a bad thing to start James Tracy?
Van der Fleer and Gary Ringrose.
Would it be such a bad thing to start Ross Maloney? Would it be such a bad thing to start Van der Fleer? I'm not saying start all of them, but there are guys there who you could. With Ruddock, say if you had Ruddock and Heaslip, you could start Van der Fleer, or you could start. You could start Timmins if you had O'Brien and Ruddock.
Just going back,
and if you don't get Mike McCarthy back, you could start Maloney.
Yeah. Just going back to the European Cup,
Triggs,
while also focusing on the Pro 12. The reason why we were in this Poxy group was because of our
shit record.
Poxy form last season in the league, and by finishing 6th.
So at least if we're doing shit in Europe,
maybe we should, draw a line under the European Cup at this stage and say, okay, now we go full bore for the Pro 12, and we've got 4 other games in the European Cup.
Use that as a player development.
Well, I mean, you're saying bring in younger guys.
I'm saying is, I mean,
where's your fucking pride, Jason?
No. I can understand. I can understand the point he's making. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean,
I'm not talking about bringing in the A team. I'm.
Blended,
I know exactly what
guys.
you mean. I know using the remaining European games as the games in which we do what we just blended guys in.
Yes.
And to a certain extent, that's the pragmatic thing to do. And it's also because there's something I think you said last year, or it was one of you said that the days of being able to compete on 2 fronts for an Irish province are gone. What you have to do is 1 year you have to concentrate.
It was me, I think.
Yeah, concentrate in the Pro 12 to get a good draw in Europe. That means you can give it socks in Europe.
Capitalise on it. Yeah. And then back.
So, to a certain extent, what you're saying is it fits into that kind of strategy. The other side of that, though, is does Irish rugby want Jamie Heaslip getting most of his game time against lesser teams and not necessarily Jamie Heaslip, but Johnny Sexton or the Carneys or whatever?
But there's only going to be 4. The reality is, there's not going to be 7. There's going to be 4.
There's also only going to be 4 or 5 players that you want to do that with. So if Jamie Heaslip misses one of those 3 games, will Joe Schmidt go, oh my God? Probably not.
Like for instance, would you rather see, like say on the 5th of December we play Glasgow, the following week we play Toulon. Like at this stage now we're out of Europe. I'd rather see us play our 100% first team against Glasgow and try and secure 4 if not 5 points in Glasgow than a weakened team and play the full strength team against Toulon down in Toulon, where at this stage it's a dead rubber.
Glasgow lost at home to Northampton last weekend. I don't think they're going to be having great ambitions for the Europe either. So
I actually agree with you. But what I'm saying is, at the same time, if you have the opportunity, which we might have, an injury might present to us, the opportunity that we can bring some guys in the Pro 12. It's just a matter of getting the balance right.
Oh, well, look,
I agree that we shouldn't go all gung-ho in the Pro 12 and just use it as a way of blooding new players the way some people seem to think that we should do. What I think we should do is concentrate on making sure we get do as well in the. I really think we should be looking to win the Pro 12 now that that's the only thing left in the slate.
Should be looking to do it anyway.
Yeah. But it's the only thing left in the slate, so why not? We have the squad, and then we can also bring guys through. I mean, there's no reason why if you have a back row of 3 players and 2 of them are senior internationals, why the third can't be a young guy.
Well, while I don't think we should be writing off Europe, and I know neither of you are suggesting that.
Dan Levy was superb the other night as well, by the way. It should be pointed out in
the A game.
Yeah, he was. He was absolutely superb.
Well, I don't think we should be writing off Europe, and I know neither of you are suggesting we should, but in some ways I think we might get done a favour in January if we are out of it. Well, I don't think we should go out to lose it, but if we don't quite make it, it could be to, because last year
Did
half
Ulster
the
send
reason
over a very weak team to Toulon last
season they did. Well, it was mainly injury though.
I think
In
it was
fairness,
injuries, yeah,
but
it was quite an unrecognisable team.
half the
Yeah, you
reason
don't
we
need
were
injuries.
fifth in the Pro 12, and not half the reason, but some small part of the reason that we were fifth in the Pro 12 was down to the fact we played 100 minutes against Toulon right in the end of the Pro 12 season. If we hadn't had the distraction of Europe, we possibly wouldn't have been fifth. And I just think it's a rebuilding season anyway. It's a post World Cup season. It's a transition season. So if we're out of Europe, it might be a blessing in disguise. To give us a chance to lick our wounds and try, really give the Pro 12 a good go.
The other side of it
We
is
can play ourselves into form,
Ulster have a decent but not magnificent
get
back
into the
row.
playoffs, and
So it does give a young player an opportunity to find his feet without being. I mean, they've some good players, but they don't have. I mean, Chris Henry's good, and Nick Williams is okay.
they're in serious trouble in back row depth.
Beyond that, I mean, so it is an opportunity for a younger player if he's
Henderson's back though,
Henderson's back. He is,
and he'll be six for them. He's second row for Ireland.
Yeah.
But he's going to play six for them until they.
Henderson against Ruddock could be the clash to end all clashes in terms of the physicality of it. Those are two hard men. You'd look forward to that. In terms of the wider team, I wouldn't. To be perfectly honest, with the exception of scrum half, I wouldn't really make that many changes in the back line.
No, I think the back line is probably our best current. Carney might be back, they say, so that'll shift Issa to the wing, and possibly Dave Carney isn't looking so good. In terms of he's limping against Wasps, and he went off injured against.
What do you do with Ringrose then? I mean, we spoke about Van der Fleur. The other side of that though is that one area where
Put him at
Ulster are
23.
really strong is on the wing. Ulster have got fantastic wingers.
Yeah.
So, there's the other side of the coin. Do you want to
I
expose
hate
him
to
to
see
those?
us going down the road of
I've been fearful.
of experience over talent, and just because somebody has 20 Irish caps doesn't necessarily, they shouldn't be a sacred cow, and they shouldn't be, because you've got 20 Irish caps, you would therefore are nearly undroppable. It should be, there's a guy coming up behind you, and if he's better than you, he's getting ahead of you.
But you said it
I agree with
yourself.
that, but the other side of that is it fair on a young player playing out of position to be exposed to some of the better wingers in the Pro 12?
No.
That's the other side of that. Now, I actually think that Ringrose would probably make a decent fist of it. But there is that talk has to be registered as well.
I was talking about Ringrose, but there are some other guys in my mind as well who that would also equate to.
You have to wrap your youth in. You have to wrap your talent in experience, even though you can choose talent over experience. You can't put out.
No,
7
of course
talented
not.
19-year-olds.
Of course not.
I think we should come up with a new formation that has 3 centres. And we have inside centre Luke, inside centre Ben Teo, and then outside centre Derek Ringrose, and then everything's happening. No, but it is a matter of getting the. I agree with you. If it was just a straight fight between a guy and one guy's there just because he's the experience, I wouldn't consider that to be a valid reason. But there are match reasons why you might want to think.
Yeah.
Do I want to play this guy out of position?
Do you not think that kind of is the case traditionally, not just in Leinster, in other clubs, for other teams, that the guy with.
It's harder to get out of the jersey than it is.
Sometimes
to
it
get
can
into
be.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I would play Ringrose at outside centre. I play Ben Teo at inside centre, and I play Luke Fitzgerald on the wing, and I wouldn't care less who else. So who I was playing, that's what I'd pick. And because I think that would be the best use of the talent available.
I'm not sure that Ben Teo is far enough into Union to start.
He was one of the few bright sparks against Bath.
At 13.
Yeah, at 13. Oh, no, in fairness, at 13.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Well,
what I would do is
rumours abound about him, whether he's going to stay or go.
there's strong rumours in both directions, so he's definitely going to go or stay, I'd say.
the rumours are he swings both ways. No, the rumours are swinging both ways, I should say. I think that if he goes, it'll be a pity because I think he's been a valuable player for us. I think he's added something to us. I'd like to see him stay. Then of course you open up the old chestnut about project players, etc., etc., etc.
I think we've had so many of them over the past number of years that at this stage I think it's a mute argument. It's it's been done to death.
Yeah, I
We
have
have plenty of them in the national team currently.
Yeah, I have no problem with it.
We've had plenty of them in the past. These things happen.
Yeah, I have no issues with it. It's
It's
just
the
I'm
rules.
just saying that
Yeah.
I guarantee it'll open the debate again.
Interesting that we saw, or there was an interview on News Talk the other morning with Henchball.
Yeah,
He didn't deny that
Anything.
He didn't deny anything. He didn't admit anything either.
the kind of mood he was in, you could have asked him if he'd shot Kennedy, and he would refuse to deny it.
Yeah, but they are, again, rumours are starting to build that he's on his way.
Well, where do you fit Luke
I
Fitzgerald,
don't know.
Gary Ringrose,
Wing,
Ben Teo, and
Yeah.
Robbie
Yeah.
Henshaw? Where do you fit all of them
well,
in?
I think
you know?
I think if he comes, you might see Theo going.
Or the other way around, if Teo goes, you might see him go, who
Or
knows?
you might decide to keep them both and have 3 centres and use all 3 of them.
Maybe.
You know, I mean, there's no
Bit of
reason why you can't do
rotation.
that. Yeah. We don't know. I mean, I remember Brian O'Driscoll refusing to rule out a move to Biarritz.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and he didn't go anywhere in the end.
I would tend to.
Well, he has to look after himself.
Oh, he
and
does. Yeah, I
get
know.
the best deal.
The
he
reality,
can.
I mean, because of the provincial system, because guys are tied to the land on which they play, as it were, it's a lot harder than it would be, say, if we were in Bath or we were in Wasps or whatever, and the guy was moving from one club to another, because he's not just moving from one club, he's moving from his home place to somewhere else. So there's a more emotional tie to a player because of that.
So I think as well.
But it is professional rugby.
But I think we we're so influenced by the GAA in Ireland.
Oh, yeah,
that,
yeah, the
parochial.
parish,
Yeah.
and even the county, that there's this link to your home place, as you say,
Mhm.
that playing for your home province is so important.
Is a big
right?
honour.
It's a big thing.
You
As
look at-
opposed
you
to
look at all the
playing
provincial
in
slogans.
Bath and Bristol, they're just city town.
You look at nearly all the provincial slogans, they're all based around, they all are some variant of I'm playing for my home place, basically. They're all some variant along that.
Munster by the grace of God.
Yeah, Leinster, our place, our people. Connacht, I don't know whether theirs is. Ulster is probably
Front up, rise up.
Say no or something. But it is, as you say, it is a holdover from. I think it is something that's came into rugby from the GAA. That idea,
Especially in Belfast.
but it became part of rugby, and they came along with us. Because it's certainly strong in Leinster, and it's certainly strong in Connacht, and it's certainly strong in Munster. So
But I don't think it's a bad thing,
No, I don't-
So
no, I don't think-
if
It's
you
a
can
very.
adapt it.
Do you know what it is? It's a very delicate balance
Yeah.
with something like what David Nusafora is trying to do. He has to be really careful that while he needs to shift players around,
Yeah.
certainly he has to do it with the players'
But-
consent.
But
and
I think it's like the marquee players should stay where they're kind of from,
Mm.
because it's
them that brings the kids in.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the next market.
And I think then when you go down a couple of layers, there's plenty of players who have been great when they've moved and they've played in a new club. Just like we've got the Trevor Hogans, the Cronins, Mike Rosses, those lads that they're as much a part of Leinster as someone that was actually born
John
here.
Fogarty.
John Fogarty. There's,
That's an example.
and there's rakes them, and there's loads that went the other way
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But they weren't the Ronan O'Garas, the Paul O'Connells, the Brian O'Driscolls, the Rob Carneys, and the Sean O'Briens.
the Robbie Henshaws
But that's what I'm saying. That Robbie Henshaw's for the good of the game in Ireland.
should stay in Connacht.
I believe he should.
I
Some people might-
totally
There's
agree.
the thing,
I totally
for
agree.
the good of Connacht, for the good of rugby in Ireland, right? I'm going to make a differentiation. For the good of rugby in Ireland, he should stay in Connacht. For the good of Irish rugby, i.e., the national team, is it that wise having one of your major players not playing top European rugby?
Well, when he's gone,
That's the other. You see, that's the juggling. That again,
A
it's
lot-
like it's a balancing
But
act.
a lot might depend on
How
where
Connacht
Connacht
do it.
And we didn't get to speak about it, but I'll just mention it. They did beat Brive at the weekend.
Yeah.
in
pretty impressive after what they were through
exactly,
the previous
I mean,
week.
it took them 3 days or 4 days to get home from the far
Oh,
end
yeah,
of Russia.
Madness. The problem for Connacht is that this is contract time.
Mhm.
Between now and January's contract time. And we don't know how Connacht are going to finish. Connacht could be in Europe next season.
Yeah. Well,
But the contracts have been done now. The other side of that for Connacht is if they're in Europe and the IRFU are looking at them as one of the big boys, that means they have to play by big boys' rules, which means they're going to lose half their team.
But what if in a year's time
And
the
by half the team, I don't mean the Irish guys. What I mean is the fact that they've been exempt from the NSSSSSSSD.
Well, what if
So they lose all the farm guys.
in a year's time the Irish centre pairing is Bundy Aki and Robbie Henshaw?
Well, if
Bundy Aki and Teo.
Bundy Aki and Ben Teo. Bendy Teo.
That'd be
Bundy
funny.
Teo. It'd be interesting. But you know, that's. I mean, to a certain extent, it addresses a wider question. You know, very apt in all across the world today. What does it mean to be from a place? You know, how does one define being from a place? Are you from Dublin because you were born here? Are you from Dublin because you were raised and lived here? Are you from Dublin because you came here in your 20s, set up a
And you
business,
liked it?
employed loads of people, stayed here and contributed to the wealth and gaiety of the city? So, I mean, there's so many things about what it means to be from somewhere that it's very hard to say, oh, you were born in Dublin, that means you're Dublin. That's all you can ever be. You can never be from Cork, you can never be from Kerry, you can never be a Galway man or whatever. There's always swings and roundabouts.
It's in your head, mate.
It's all in your head.
It's
isn't
wherever you think you should be. That's where you should be.
So Dave, you had one more comment from Facebook.
Yeah, Darragh Faulkner asks, why does rugby always hurt him when he shows it nothing but love? I don't know the answer, but usually you have to pay extra for that kind of thing.
Very good, very good.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks again, lads, and thanks a million for watching. Cheers.